Well, good evening. Welcome to the Rocky Springs Baptist Church Wednesday night Bible study by way of YouTube. We appreciate you tuning in and hope that the Lord has given you great blessings this week. We remind you, as we always do, to pray. Watching the news today and some last night, our nation is going to be desperately, or already is desperately, in need of prayer. Don't forget to pray for those of our number who are sick. We ask you to pray also for all of our military personnel who guard our freedoms and hope that we can continue to have the freedoms that we enjoy. Don't forget to pray for our law enforcement officers who protect us from crime. And, of course, don't forget our medical personnel who take care of us when we're sick. We ask that you pray for them. And we ask that you pray for our services this coming Lord's Day. We're meeting for Sunday school at 10:30 Sunday morning. At 10 o'clock Sunday morning. And then we'll have our worship hour. We'll be dismissed until the next Sunday. So don't forget that. Well, I'll call your attention this evening to the book of James, chapter number 5. And we are studying the book of James. It's Christianity 101. And it tells us a great deal of how that God's people are to live in this world. And James says, beginning in verse 1 of chapter 5, "Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl, for your miseries shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and all the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as if it were fire. You've heaped together treasures together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers, who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. Ye have lived in pleasure upon the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you." You know, we hear a great deal about money in our society, and people have sometimes an obsession with money. But and other people talk about how that money is bad. But money's not bad. I was going to be fair with you. It's neither good nor it's neither bad. Paul said the love of money is the root of all evil, or all kinds of evil. And certainly that is true. That he said that if you want to be, and you're seeking and you're desiring to be rich, then it'll cause sin in your life. It will bring out evil in people. Money will bring out evil. Kind of like an x-ray sometimes of tell me what you think about money, and I'll tell you what's in your heart. You see, money's the root. The love of money is the root of all evil. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse number 19 says that money's the answer. Now, Ecclesiastes is not teaching us that we're to love money, but it's telling us that in some ways we have to have money. We have to have some means of purchasing or buying those things that we need to keep alive. And certainly sometimes we all spend money, and we have money. We have to buy some groceries. We buy other things. But when you love money, it's a totally different thing. Because, as I said, the money's neither bad or good. If I were to produce five $20 bills, and I might be like the little boy was in school, and the teacher said, if you looked in your pants and found a $5 bill in your right pocket and a $10 bill in your left pocket, what would you have? And the little boy said, somebody else's pants. But I'll tell you, if you had five $20 bills, that's just paper printed with ink. Nothing bad, nothing good. You see, it's what's in our heart. And that's what James is going to talk about here in this particular passage of Scripture, you see. Abraham was a rich man, but he was also called the friend of God. David was a rich man, but he was a man after God's own heart. You see, James says in verse number 1 that, go now, ye rich men, ye weep in a house for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. In other words, your money is not worth anything. I think in 1929, we had the Great Depression when the stock market fell. People who woke up one morning millionaires were paupers by the evening. Men jumped out of windows and took their own life because they had based their life upon how much stock they owned, how much money they'd made, and they were living high on the hog. They'd kind of forgotten about the Lord. And suddenly their money wasn't worth anything. They were just as poor as the poorest dirt farmer that ever turned a shovel of dirt. And they were total chaos and anarchy because this took place in their life. And so James talks about a few things here about money. Number one, he talks about the arrogance of money. The arrogance of money. He said, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as if it were fire, because you've heaped together treasures for the last days. See, so many people value money. I mean, they base their worth, their value upon how much money they have, how much money they make. People are moving from job to job because they can make more money. They want to have a better car, a finer home, better clothes. Their value is based upon money, you see. And they desire. That's what their desire is. That's what's in their heart. They live for money. I'm reminded of two television shows I watch occasionally. One's entitled American Greed. And it records the stories of people who were greedy. They wanted to make a lot of money, so they cheated people. Bernie Madoff was one of them. There are many others that will cheat people out of their money because they're greedy. About all you can say about it. They're just greedy. I'm pretty sure you got some folks standing in pulpits, and they are greedy. They desire money. That's what they're after. Sometimes somebody will come on and say, you send me $50 and I'll send you $150. The Lord will give you $150. Well, sometimes I'm thinking, you send me the $50, let him give you the $150. Just think about it. It's arrogant, Shark Tank, you know. Some people come on there with the products they've developed and sometimes maybe invented. Some sometimes they're making a decent living and they're wanting to get money from uh, these people called sharks to take it to the next level and build a worldwide brand to make millions and billions of dollars. And that's all they're thinking about, you know. And I'm thinking, you know, you're making a decent living, won't you just make a decent living? You know, I, I look at those sharks, one of them, that's all he talks about is money. He don't care anything about anything but money. I'm pretty sure all of them do, but just for one particular shark, that's all he cares about. That's all he talks about is how he can make gobs of money. That's all he's interested in, you know. But you see, money can't buy a lot of things. Money can't buy you safety. You might think it can. You might could hire some bodyguards. You you might could build you a walled-in mansion. You may have all kinds of weapons. But the Grim Reaper will ride through those walls and past those bodyguards and give you a heart attack in a moment of time. And you're gone. Can buy you safety. Sometimes our bodyguards, you read where they have these military coups in other countries and, people will turn on people because they want what they have. Can't buy you safety. Can't buy you love. You know, I love my wife, but there's no way I could ever buy her love. I love her, and she loves me, but I couldn't buy her love. But I wouldn't have enough money. If she'd sell it, I wouldn't have enough to buy it. I want to tell you, money can't buy you love. You know, money can't buy you salvation. A lot of folks say, I'll give a lot of money to the church and God will forgive me all of my sins. Well, Isaiah said, hey, come and buy without money. You can't buy salvation. It's free. It's the grace of God. And you can go down and talk to the preacher and be like the man who lived a very ungodly life. He drank and gambled all of his money away, beat his wife and kids. He just was a pretty bad man. And one day he died. Well, his brother flew in for the funeral. And his brother was a multi-millionaire. So he came in to the funeral and he went down to the First Baptist Church and said, I want to speak to the pastor. And he said, do you know my brother? And he said, yes, sir, I do. He said, I see y'all building a new addition on your church. He said, yes, sir. He said, how much are you going to cost? He said, well, we've got about half of it. Said, it's going to cost us about another $50,000 to $75,000. The man said, I'll give you the $75,000. All you got to say when you get up and preach my brother's funeral is that he was a saint. Well, of course, word got out and everybody wondered, well, what was the preacher going to do? And so he told the man, he said, I'll do it. He got up and called this man's name, called the dead man's name, And he said everybody knows that he was a drunkard, that he was a gambler, that he beat his wife and his children, didn't take care of his family, that he was a fornicator, and he named off all the bad things this man was. And he said, but next to his brother sitting there, he was a saint. You can't buy salvation. 75,000, 75 million, you can't buy salvation. It's from the grace of God. You can't even buy the blessings of God. A lot of folks think you can buy the blessings of God, but you can't. I remember I was in a particular service a long time ago, and they got to taking up an offering, and this one man went up and he laid out a bunch of stuff. I don't remember all that he put out, and he said, the Lord said if I'd come up and do this, he'd save so and so. And I thought, sir, you're so far off. Preacher, give that man his stuff back. God didn't say that. God said, if you'll come to me, I'll in no wise cast you out. It's by grace. You can't even buy off the judgment of God. You see, you can buy the judgment in this world. You can hire lawyers. You can hire senators. You can buy all kind of high officials. But when you stand before the God of glory, the righteous God of this universe, you'll not be able to buy his judgment because he's righteous. You see, a lot of folks got arrogant about their money and they think they can do whatever they want to do. Then the atrocious cruelty of money. He talks here about cheating people out of what they work for. You see, he said, behold the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. That's cruel. You hire a man to work. He works. At the end of the day, he's supposed to get paid, and you don't pay him. At the end of the week, you don't pay him. You cheat him out of what he worked for. And you take a vacation on him. I mean, just paraphrase here, but that's, you know, you go and buy you a new car on what somebody else has worked for. You cheating people out of what is theirs. They labor. They work. They show up every day on the promise of a paycheck, but you don't pay them. They're working, but you're not paying them. You know, a lot of people, you know, they'll get somebody else's possession. You know, they evict people. I've had a couple of rental properties in my life. I inherited them and I sold them pretty quick because I didn't want to be in the rental business. One of them, I finally had to go down to court and see if the court could help me. I talked to the man. I did everything I could. I said, man, just pay me enough that I'm not losing money. I've got to feed my family too. And he just wouldn't do it. And I finally had to. But I'm talking about somebody, when they come to me, I had one lady, I knew she was in dire straits, and she'd come by and say, I can't pay you but half of it this month. And I'd say, that'd be fine. You know, I couldn't evict somebody and put two kids out on the street. I mean, I just don't think that's right. I'm talking about people who are doing right, doing the best they can. You know, a lot of folks are rich. You know, they don't even need to rent. but yet they'll throw somebody out on the street. Children out, hungry, high-fed, and don't have clothes to wear. You know what you are? You're a thief. You may have a lot of money, may have a college degree, but you're still a thief. The avarice of money. You know, a lot of people that's greedy. They're selfish. They want to live as high as they can. You know, I like to eat. I guess that's one of my biggest vices. Always has been. But you know, I don't fancy food. I read about all these fancy places people go to eat, and they got all this fancy restaurants and all that. I remember oftentimes when my big daddy, who raised me, he'd say, "You know, son, what food is?" I'd say, "What, Big Daddy?" And he'd say, "Gut wadding." Said that's all it is. It's just gut wadding. I think about that every once in a while. Peas and cornbread fill you up just as much as the finest cuisine in the world. I'd rather have peas and cornbread, macaroni and cheese. If I had some of my grandma's fried chicken, whew, Lord have mercy. One of my mama's homemade chocolate pies, or my grandmother's fried apple pies. Oh, praise God. What I'll tell you, there ain't no finer cuisine in the world. But some folks are just greedy with it. And they're remorseless of money. You know, care nothing about others. Just heartless. You're heartless. You know, I often think about all of that stuff, and you know, we live in a time that alcohol has been voted in the city down the road from me. Walmart replaced a great deal of their square footage with alcohol. Liquor stores. Why do they do that? I talked to one gentleman who still runs an independent grocery store, and I said, "You going to sell beer?" He said, "No." He said, "If I lose every bit of my business, I'll just quit." He said, I'm not selling that." Oh, we can get the tax money out of it, what they say. We can do this, we can do that. It's greed. People want it. We just voted in marijuana. Why did they do that? Well, let's say, well, it's for medical purposes. It won't be long. It'll be to everybody. The states are already backing out of the medical thing and selling it to anybody. Why? Greed. Gambling. Greed. They care nothing about nobody. Just how much money they can put. There's not a legislator in this state, and I'm going to say this very plain. I want to tell you something, folks. There's not a legislator in this state to give you a good reason to have gambling, drugs, and alcohol. We don't need it. You just listen to the cries of wives and mamas and children who are dealing with people who are addicted to these things, and how they can't take care of their own family. What people are going to say when we're gone? Or he will have finest clothes, drove great cars, lived in several houses. I'm not going to say that about me, I'll be honest with you. I really don't want them to say that about me. I want them to say I like people. I wanted to help people. And that I really, really wanted to share the gospel with people around the world. I hope this evening you have a blessed evening. May God bless you this evening.